These are two of ON Cloud's primary stability shoes. You've got the Cloudrunner 2 and you've got the Cloudflyer 5. Now they're two completely different types of shoes, and as a foot and ankle specialist I'm going to break down the difference in specifications of these shoes and how they influence your feet. If you've got a flatter foot, issues with tendons around your foot, I'll explain how these can help and what difference they make, how you feel when you walk, stand all day, or when you run. The first thing that we're going to talk about is the cushioning and the stack in the shoe. So in the Cloudrunner 2, you've got 39mm of cushioning in the rear foot, 29mm of cushioning in the forefoot, giving you a 10mm difference from the back to the front of the shoe. Where that's influential is if you've got conditions like Achilles tendonitis, having a higher drop, so typically 8mm or above, helps to take the pressure off the Achilles during the gait cycle and can reduce Achilles tendon pain. In contrast to that, with the Cloudflyer 5, you've got 31mm of cushioning on the rear foot, 21mm of cushioning on the forefoot, also giving you a 10mm drop, but you have less cushioning overall in the forefoot, which can make a big difference if you've got conditions like metatarsalgia, Morton's neuroma, as by lifting the heel, shortening the Achilles, it can put extra pressure on the forefoot, irritating these conditions, whereas you've got the same tilt on the Cloudrunner 2, but you got a bit more padding underneath the forefoot, so that's worth consideration. Then, in terms of the cushioning itself, we've got the heeling cushioning in both shoes, however they feel completely different underfoot. So when you make initial contact with the ground on the Cloudrunner 2, it's a really smooth, really soft contact, really feels like you're walking on a cloud, really comfortable, whereas with the Cloudflyer it's very firm, very relatively rigid, feels quite stiff underfoot. Now you've got two different types of cushioning in the Cloudflyer. You've got a stiffer, firmer cushioning underneath the heel, and you've got a softer cushioning underneath the forefoot, and you can really feel the firmness of that as you initiate contact with the ground and move through into mid-stance. Now they have different types of elements of stability in the cushioning. So underneath the Cloudrunner 2 you've got the CloudTech pods, and the pods are slightly broader on the inner aspect of the shoe on the Cloudrunner, and that helps to add extra stability to the shoe. They're a little bit denser and therefore reduces the amount of compression, so reduces the amount that your foot can move inward. In contrast to that, you have these big rigid CloudTech pods that are firm on the inner aspect of the Cloudflyer 5, and they add extra elements of stability. Then, like most stability shoes, they've got some sole flare where the sole comes out wider than where your foot sits in the shoe. That helps increase the amount of contact you have with the ground. It also has a broad midfoot, so it doesn't narrow like some shoes do, again increasing the contact you have with the ground. Similarly, you've got a nice broad forefoot on the Cloudrunner, but runs a little bit narrower in the midfoot. So the Cloudflyer almost feels more like an orthopedic shoe overall. It's quite big, clunky, chunky. It's a difficult transition from heel through to forefoot push off, whereas it's much softer, smoother, and probably a little bit less stable on the Cloudrunner 2, but for us we found it much more comfortable. Then as we move up the shoe to the upper, they've got a similar engineered upper mesh on top, similar thickness of laces. They both have a padded tongue, and a little bit more padded on the Cloudflyer 5. They did have this unusual diagonal pattern on the Cloudflyer 5, just more aesthetics rather than anything else. We had no problem with the lockdown, and they both have lots of cushioning around the heel counter. You've got the heel clip around the Cloudflyer 5, try and give you some stability to the heel counter, so we give you that, we classify it as moderate stability, and you've got a little bit more rigidity to the heel counter on the Cloudrunner 2. Overall, these shoes can be helpful for multiple conditions. I think if you've got issues like posterior tibial tendonitis, the extra elements of stability in the Cloudrunner 2 can help. If you're looking for a really stable shoe, it will help for posterior tibial tendonitis. It will also help for peroneal tendonitis because it really acts to stabilize that foot as it makes contact with the ground. As you move through to the forefoot, both shoes come in a wider version. We had no issues with the fit on the normal version, and to give you some perspective on that, with Hoka we normally need a wide version. We struggle to fit into the normal fit in that, but no issues with this. As I say, you can get a wider version, no issues with length, so it's a true to size. So both shoes are relatively comfortable. We prefer the Cloudrunner 2 overall, a little bit softer but still has elements of stability, very rigid, stable and firm in the Cloudflyer 5, a bit more like the Ghost Max 2, but the Ghost Max 2 is still a little bit more cushioned, especially the latest model. Maybe it's a bit more like the original model of the Ghost Max. So both shoes are useful for providing stability. They can be useful if you've got issues with progressive flat foot, if you've got some issues with your tendons of your foot as we described. But I'm happy to answer any questions in the comment section below. We've got links to both shoes in the description. If you buy through the link, it's really helpful for the channel. However, if you decide not to buy the shoes, if you just like the video, share it or subscribe to the channel, that's also really helpful as well.